Boss fired me publicly for being too old. He didn't realize who had funded his entire startup. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as I sat at my desk, the familiar hum blending with the rhythmic tapping of keyboards and muted conversations. At 48, I had spent over 2 decades building a career in tech marketing, navigating the ever-changing landscape of digital innovation while maintaining an unwavering passion for creative problem-solving. My current position at Innovatech Solutions had seemed like the perfect opportunity, a chance to mentor younger colleagues while applying my extensive experience to help shape a promising startup. Every morning, I arrived at the office before most of my teammates, savoring the quiet moments when I could organize my thoughts and strategize for the day ahead. My workstation, nestled between the bustling open-plan area and the conference rooms, had become my command center. The walls around me were adorned with sticky notes detailing campaign ideas, competitor analysis, and market trends, a visual representation of my dedication to the company's success. What many didn't realize was that my connection to Innovatech ran deeper than just an employee-employer relationship. 5 years earlier, during one of the company's critical funding rounds, I had quietly invested a significant portion of my personal savings into the startup through a family trust. This decision wasn't made lightly. I had been impressed by the founder's vision and the innovative potential of their AI-driven marketing platform. My investment had helped secure the series of funding that allowed them to scale from a small team of developers to a growing enterprise of over 50 employees. Despite my age, I had always prided myself on staying current with industry trends and technological advancements. Each evening after work, I dedicated time to learning new tools and platforms, ensuring that my skills remained sharp and relevant. My colleagues often sought my advice on both professional matters and career development, appreciating my willingness to share insights gained from years of experience. The young marketing team, in particular, had formed a special bond with me, valuing my ability to blend traditional marketing wisdom with modern digital strategies. The office dynamics had always felt comfortable to me, though I was aware of the subtle generational divide. While some senior management occasionally made offhand comments about keeping things fresh or staying youthful, I had never taken these remarks personally. After all, my track record spoke for itself. Our recent campaign had increased client engagement by 40%, and my strategic guidance had helped secure 3 major accounts in the past quarter alone. These achievements weren't just numbers on a report. They represented countless hours of dedication and the culmination of years of honed expertise. As I prepared for our weekly team meeting that fateful Tuesday morning, I couldn't have anticipated how dramatically my professional world was about to change. The coffee machine's familiar gurgle and the sound of colleagues settling into their seats created a sense of normalcy that would soon be shattered. Little did I know that within the next hour, everything I had built at Innovatech would be called into question, not because of my performance, but because of a number, my age. The meeting began like any other, with our usual round of updates and project reviews. As we discussed the upcoming product launch, I noticed Daniel, the CEO, becoming increasingly agitated. His fingers drummed against the conference table, and his eyes kept darting toward me. When it was my turn to present the marketing strategy, I stood confidently, ready to share the comprehensive plan I had developed over weeks of research and collaboration. But before I could even begin, Daniel interrupted me with a wave of his hand. "We need to address something here," he announced, his voice carrying an edge that immediately silenced the room. All eyes turned to him, then shifted to me as he continued. "I've been reviewing our team structure, and it's become clear that we need to make some changes. Our company image needs to reflect a younger, more dynamic approach. We can't afford to appear outdated in this competitive market." The air seemed to thicken as realization dawned on me. My heart began to race, but years of professional composure kept my expression neutral. Daniel stood up, pacing slowly behind me as he elaborated. "Take Margaret, for instance. While she's contributed in the past, her methods are antiquated. We need fresh perspectives, not someone who remembers dial-up internet as their glory days." Laughter rippled through the room, though it sounded forced and uncomfortable. My hands trembled slightly as I gripped the edge of the conference table. The presentation materials I had prepared lay forgotten beside me. Around the table, I could see my colleagues avoiding eye contact, their faces flushed with embarrassment or discomfort. Some were furiously typing on their laptops, likely documenting every word for posterity. The young marketing team that had trusted me as their mentor sat frozen, their expressions a mixture of shock and distress. Daniel's voice grew louder, more pointed. "In today's market, appearance matters as much as capability. We need leaders who embody the future, not those who represent the past." Margaret, your time here has come to an end. Effective immediately, you're relieved of your duties. He paused dramatically, letting his words sink in. Security will escort you out shortly. Please gather your personal belongings and leave your access card with HR. The room spun around me as I processed his words. 20 years of experience, countless successful campaigns, and months of dedicated work on this very project, all dismissed in a matter of minutes. My mind raced through the implications, the unfinished projects, the team I had nurtured, the clients who depended on my expertise. Through the haze of disbelief, I became acutely aware of the dozens of eyes watching my every move, waiting to see how I would react to this public execution. As security personnel entered the room, their presence adding insult to injury, I forced myself to maintain dignity. The walk back to my desk felt endless, each step accompanied by the murmur of whispered conversations and the sound of phones being discreetly raised to capture the moment. Colleagues who had once sought my guidance now pretended to be deeply engrossed in their work, unable to meet my gaze. The young interns who had admired my approach to marketing sat rigid in their chairs, their expressions a mixture of horror and helplessness. At my desk, I methodically began packing my belongings. The framed photographs of my family, the collection of marketing books I had accumulated over the years, the handwritten notes from Mentz, each item carried memories and meaning that suddenly felt painfully distant. With every object I placed in the box, anger and humiliation battled with a lifetime of professional pride. The injustice of the situation burned within me, not just for myself, but for every person who might face similar discrimination based solely on age. When Daniel returned home that evening, he found solace in the quiet sanctuary of his study. The weight of his actions pressed heavily upon him, yet he struggled to understand why he felt unsettled. As he sat at his antique mahogany desk, a gift from his grandfather, he reached for the leather-bound journal where he documented his entrepreneurial journey. Flipping through the pages, he traced his fingers over the early entries, remembering the desperation and determination that had fueled his startup's beginnings. The first few years had been brutal. He recalled the countless rejection emails from venture capitalists, the sleepless nights spent crunching numbers, and the constant fear of running out of funds. It was during one of these darkest periods that an unexpected lifeline had appeared. A mysterious investor had approached him through a mutual contact, offering substantial funding without the usual strings attached. This angel investor had believed in his vision when others had dismissed it, providing not just capital but valuable guidance during crucial decision-making moments. Daniel's fingers paused on a particular entry dated 5 years ago. The handwriting seemed heavier, more urgent, met with the investor today. Their questions were insightful, cutting through the fluff to the core of our business model. They understood our challenges better than anyone else I've spoken with. Something about their experience feels familiar. He remembered how this investor had challenged him to think beyond conventional marketing strategies, pushing him to develop the very AI platform that now served as Innovateka's flagship product. His thoughts drifted to the numerous board meetings where this investor had provided crucial support. There was the time they had backed his decision to pivot the product focus, despite strong opposition from other stakeholders. Or when they had introduced him to key industry contacts who later became vital partners. Each intervention had been marked by a deep understanding of market dynamics and consumer behavior, insights that had proven invaluable to Innovateka's growth trajectory. Leaning back in his chair, Daniel stared at the ceiling, trying to reconcile his memories with the events of the day. The irony wasn't lost on him. He had just fired someone for being too old and experienced, yet his company's survival had depended entirely on such qualities. The investor's wisdom and foresight had been instrumental in steering Innovatek through its most challenging phases. Their occasional visits to the office, always brief and unassuming, had left lasting impressions on both the business strategy and the company culture. A sudden realization struck him as he remembered Margaret's measured responses during strategy meetings, her comprehensive understanding of both traditional and digital marketing landscapes, and her uncanny ability to anticipate market shifts. These were precisely the qualities he had praised in his anonymous benefactor. The coincidence seemed impossible, yet the parallels were undeniable. His chest tightened as he considered the magnitude of his mistake, not just professionally, but ethically and personally. The journal fell closed with a soft thud as Daniel rested his head in his hands. The comfortable leather chair that had witnessed countless moments of triumph now cradled him in a sea of doubt and regret. Outside, the city lights twinkled, oblivious to the turmoil brewing within. For the first time since founding Innovatek, Daniel questioned whether his vision for the company's future had clouded his judgment about what truly mattered in leadership and innovation. News of my dismissal spread through the tech community like wildfire. Within hours, messages flooded my phone from former colleagues, industry peers, and even competitors expressing outrage and support. Sarah Chun, a prominent venture capitalist, sent a particularly poignant message. "Margaret, your contributions to our field speak louder than any age bias. Let's discuss opportunities where your expertise would be valued and respected." Her words echoed the sentiments of many who recognized the depth of my experience and the injustice of my termination. The response from Innovateka's own employees proved equally telling. Throughout the afternoon, my inbox filled with emails from team members expressing their dismay and solidarity. Young marketers I had mentored shared stories of how my guidance had shaped their careers. One junior analyst wrote, "You taught me that true innovation comes from understanding history, not ignoring it. Your departure leaves a void that can't be filled by trendy buzzwords or superficial appearances." Another colleague, a rising star in product development, confessed that she had been preparing to leave the company herself, feeling that the culture no longer aligned with her values. Industry publications picked up the story quickly, transforming my personal setback into a broader discussion about age discrimination in tech. Prominent business journals featured opinion pieces questioning the validity of associating youth with innovation. The Wall Street Tech Review published an article titled "Experience versus Image: The False Dichotomy in Startup Culture," which highlighted several companies that had successfully leveraged seasoned professionals to drive groundbreaking innovations. Influential figures in the marketing world weighed in, sharing their own experiences of age-related biases and calling for systemic change in hiring practices. Perhaps most surprising was the reaction from Innovateka's clients. Several major accounts contacted me directly, expressing concern about the direction of their campaigns under new leadership. One longtime partner, Global Reach Media, went so far as to request a meeting to discuss their contractual obligations, citing my dismissal as a potential breach of service quality agreements. The ripple effect extended to potential investors who had been considering partnerships with Innovatek, now questioning the company's commitment to diversity and inclusion. As the day wore on, I received invitations to speak at industry conferences about age diversity in technology. The National Marketing Association requested my participation in their upcoming panel discussion on workplace inclusivity. Even academic institutions reached out, interested in incorporating my experience into case studies about age discrimination in corporate environments. Each message reinforced the value of my expertise and underscored how misguided Daniel's decision had been. The irony wasn't lost on anyone in the tech community. Here was a company whose success had been built on sophisticated marketing strategies that I had helped develop and implement, now facing a PR crisis of its own making. Social media platforms lit up with discussions about the incident, with hashtags like #ExperienceMatters and #AgeIsJustANumber trending throughout the tech sector. Industry veterans shared their own stories of overcoming age-related prejudices, creating a groundswell of support that transformed my personal challenge into a movement for change. Through it all, I maintained a careful balance between acknowledging the support and focusing on the bigger picture. While the immediate attention was flattering, I recognized the opportunity to shift the conversation from individual grievances to systemic issues. The outpouring of support wasn't just about me, it represented a collective awakening to the persistent problems of ageism in an industry obsessed with youth culture. Every message, every offer, every expression of solidarity added another layer to the complex web of consequences stemming from Daniel's impulsive decision. The following morning brought an unexpected development that would reshape the narrative surrounding my departure from Innovatek. As I sat in my home office, organizing the flood of communications from the previous day, my phone buzzed with a call from an unfamiliar number. The voice on the other end belonged to Emily Carter, a senior investigative journalist from Tech Insider magazine. She had uncovered something during her research that changed everything. Emily explained that she had been digging into Innovateka's financial records as part of her investigation into age discrimination cases in tech startups. What she discovered was staggering, a pattern of questionable investments and suspicious funding allocations that suggested potential misuse of company resources. More importantly, she had uncovered documentation linking my family trust to the critical series of funding round that had saved Innovatek from bankruptcy. The revelation wasn't just about my personal investment, it exposed a network of financial decisions that raised serious ethical questions about the company's leadership and fiscal responsibility. The implications of this discovery were profound. Not only had Daniel terminated the person whose investment had literally kept his company afloat, but he had done so publicly, creating a paper trail of discriminatory practices that could have severe legal ramifications. Emily's sources indicated that several major investors were already reviewing their positions with Innovatech, concerned about both the leadership's judgment and the potential fallout from the age discrimination lawsuit that seemed increasingly inevitable. Industry experts who had initially expressed support for my situation now viewed it through a different lens. Corporate governance specialists began analyzing Innovatech's board composition and decision-making processes, questioning how such a fundamental conflict of interest had gone unnoticed for years. Legal advisors started reaching out, not just to offer representation but to discuss potential class action implications if similar patterns emerged in other departments or subsidiaries. The tech community's response evolved from sympathy to strategic interest. Venture capital firms that had previously shown interest in Innovatech's expansion plans began reassessing their commitments. Some saw an opportunity to acquire the company at a discounted rate, knowing that the current leadership would likely be forced out. Others viewed it as a chance to restructure the company with stronger governance protocols and more inclusive leadership practices. Within Innovatech itself, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. Employees who had witnessed my dismissal now grappled with the knowledge that their jobs had been indirectly secured by the very person their CEO had publicly humiliated. Whispers of internal investigations spread through the office, and several senior managers requested emergency meetings with HR regarding potential retaliation claims. The marketing department, in particular, found itself paralyzed, unsure how to proceed with ongoing campaigns without the strategic oversight they had relied upon. As news of the financial connection broke, Daniel faced increasing pressure from multiple fronts. Shareholders demanded explanations, while the board of directors scheduled an emergency meeting to address the growing crisis. Competitors watched closely, ready to poach talent and clients who might lose faith in Innovatech's stability. The situation had transformed from a simple case of age discrimination into a complex web of financial, legal, and reputational challenges that threatened to unravel everything Daniel had built. For me, the unfolding events presented a unique opportunity to influence meaningful change in an industry that desperately needed it. The connections I had cultivated over decades in tech marketing suddenly took on new significance. Former colleagues who had once simply offered sympathy now proposed concrete actions, establishing mentorship programs for older professionals, creating industry standards for age-inclusive hiring practices, and developing metrics to measure the impact of diverse experience levels on innovation. The complexity of the situation grew as various stakeholders began positioning themselves for the inevitable restructuring. Legal teams assembled war rooms to prepare for multiple scenarios, while public relations experts crafted contingency plans for damage control. Investment banks circled like vultures, ready to advise on potential mergers or acquisitions that could emerge from the chaos. Every move, every statement, every decision carried weight far beyond the original incident, transforming a single act of discrimination into a pivotal moment for corporate accountability in the tech sector. As the situation at Innovatech continued to unfold, Daniel found himself caught in an increasingly complex web of consequences. The board of directors, once supportive of his aggressive growth strategies, now demanded answers about both the ethical implications of my termination and the undisclosed nature of my family trust's investment. During an emergency meeting held in the same conference room where I had been publicly dismissed, board members passed around documents detailing the financial irregularities Emily Carter had uncovered. Each page seemed to add another layer of complexity to the crisis. The company's legal team, led by veteran attorney Michael Chun, presented a grim assessment of their position. "We're looking at potential violations of employment law, securities regulations, and possibly even fraud charges," he explained, his voice steady but concerned. "The public nature of Your Name's termination creates a perfect storm of liability. Add to that the revelation about the investment, and we're potentially facing shareholder lawsuits as well." Meanwhile, Daniel's attempts to manage the public relations nightmare were complicated by conflicting advice from various quarters. The PR firm he had hired recommended a full disclosure approach, while his CFO argued for minimal transparency to protect what remained of the company's valuation. This internal debate played out against the backdrop of mounting media scrutiny and increasingly vocal criticism from industry watchdog groups. The Human Resources Department faced its own challenges as employees began filing formal complaints about the company's culture and leadership practices. An anonymous survey conducted among staff revealed widespread concerns about age discrimination, favoritism, and lack of transparent communication. The results painted a picture of systemic issues that went far beyond my individual case, suggesting a fundamental misalignment between the company's stated values and its operational reality. Financial institutions that had previously supported Innovatech started pulling back their lines of credit, citing increased risk factors. Venture capital firms involved in later funding rounds began conducting their own investigations, threatening to withdraw support if satisfactory explanations weren't forthcoming. The company's stock price, already volatile due to market conditions, began to slide as investors reacted to the uncertainty surrounding leadership and governance. The marketing department, still reeling from my departure, struggled to maintain client relationships. Several major accounts put their contracts on hold pending resolution of the situation, while others actively sought alternative providers. The very AI platform I had helped develop, the supposed symbol of Innovatech's innovative spirit, became a point of contention as questions arose about the ethics of its development process and the treatment of its creators. Amidst this chaos, Daniel attempted to reach out to me directly, leaving voicemails and sending emails that went unanswered. His messages oscillated between defensive justifications and desperate appeals for understanding, reflecting his growing awareness of the gravity of his mistake. Yet with each passing day, his options narrowed as the situation spiraled further out of his control. The tech community's response evolved from mere observation to active intervention. Industry associations began drafting new guidelines for age-inclusive workplace practices, using Innovatech's situation as a cautionary tale. Recruitment firms specializing in executive placement started approaching potential candidates to lead a turnaround effort, while boutique consulting agencies offered their services to help navigate the impending restructuring. As these various forces converged, the initial act of age discrimination transformed into a comprehensive examination of corporate governance, ethical leadership, and the true meaning of innovation in the tech sector. Each development added new dimensions to the crisis, creating a situation where the path forward remained unclear, but the need for fundamental change became increasingly evident. The unfolding crisis at Innovatech triggered a cascade of revelations that extended far beyond the company's walls, illuminating systemic issues within the tech industry's culture and practices. As regulatory bodies launched investigations into the company's financial dealings, they discovered patterns of similar behaviors across multiple startups. The Securities and Exchange Commission, prompted by whistleblower reports, began examining funding structures and investment disclosures in the tech sector, uncovering a network of opaque financial arrangements that favored short-term gains over sustainable growth. This scrutiny revealed a troubling trend. Numerous companies had implemented what appeared to be deliberate strategies to marginalize experienced professionals while simultaneously courting investments from established industry figures. The disconnect between these parallel approaches suggested a calculated attempt to benefit from seasoned expertise without acknowledging or compensating it appropriately. The Department of Labor joined the investigation, focusing on age discrimination practices that had long been dismissed as acceptable industry norms. The media coverage of Innovatech's situation evolved from sensational reporting to in-depth analysis of ageism in technology. Major publications devoted entire issues to exploring the intersection of experience, innovation, and corporate culture. Harvard Business Review published a landmark study showing that companies with balanced age demographics consistently outperformed those focused solely on youth culture, challenging the prevailing Silicon Valley narrative that equated young founders with groundbreaking ideas. Professional organizations responded by establishing certification programs for age-inclusive workplaces, creating benchmarks and best practices for companies seeking to demonstrate genuine commitment to diversity across all age groups. The American Marketing Association launched a task force specifically focused on integrating multi-generational teams in creative industries, drawing on my years of experience in bridging traditional and digital marketing approaches. The legal ramifications of the situation expanded as class action lawsuits emerged from various sectors of the tech industry. Law firms specializing in employment discrimination found themselves overwhelmed with inquiries from professionals who had previously feared speaking out about age-related biases. The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission reported a 300% increase in age discrimination complaints within 6 months of the initial incident, indicating a significant shift in workers' willingness to challenge discriminatory practices. Venture capital firms faced their own reckoning as limited partners began demanding greater transparency in investment decisions and portfolio company management. Several prominent funds revised their due diligence processes to include assessments of age diversity and inclusion practices, recognizing that sustainable innovation requires contributions from all generations. The National Venture Capital Association established a working group to develop guidelines for ethical investing practices that respect both emerging talent and established expertise. Educational institutions adapted their curricula to address these developments, incorporating case studies about the importance of diverse experience levels in technological advancement. Business schools began requiring courses on intergenerational leadership, emphasizing that true innovation comes from combining fresh perspectives with historical context. Internship programs evolved to pair students with mentors spanning different age groups, fostering understanding and collaboration across generations. The ripple effects reached international markets as well. European Union regulators, already focused on digital rights and worker protections, used the Innovatech situation to strengthen their age discrimination laws. Asian technology hubs began implementing similar reforms, recognizing that global competitiveness required embracing all forms of diversity. Multinational corporations operating in multiple jurisdictions found themselves navigating increasingly complex compliance requirements related to age inclusivity. As these changes permeated the industry, a new paradigm began emerging, one that valued experience as a crucial component of innovation rather than an obstacle to it. Companies that had previously hidden their reliance on seasoned professionals now proudly showcased their multi-generational teams as a competitive advantage. Job postings dropped age-related code words, and recruitment practices evolved to emphasize capability over chronological age. The tech sector, once dominated by youth-centric narratives, started embracing a more nuanced understanding of what drives meaningful progress and sustainable growth. Throughout this transformation, my role evolved from wronged employee to catalyst for industry-wide change. The connections I had built over decades in tech marketing became channels for implementing new standards and practices. Fellow industry veterans reached out to collaborate on initiatives promoting age diversity, while younger professionals sought guidance on navigating the shifting landscape. The very qualities that had led to my public dismissal, extensive experience, strategic insight, and a comprehensive understanding of market dynamics, now positioned me as a key figure in reshaping the industry's approach to talent and innovation. Rather than viewing the situation as purely negative, I recognized the opportunity to redefine success metrics in tech marketing. Working with academic institutions and industry associations, I helped develop frameworks for measuring the impact of diverse experience levels on campaign effectiveness and market penetration. These metrics demonstrated conclusively that teams incorporating varied generational perspectives achieved better results across multiple dimensions, from customer engagement to revenue growth. The support network that had emerged in the wake of my termination transformed into a powerful force for change. We organized workshops and seminars focused on bridging generational gaps in technological adoption and marketing strategies. Young professionals learned to appreciate the value of historical context in market analysis, while experienced marketers gained insights into emerging platforms and consumer behaviors. This exchange of knowledge fostered innovation that neither group could achieve independently. Industry conferences began featuring panels and keynote speeches addressing age diversity in tech leadership. My presentations combined personal experience with data-driven insights, illustrating how companies that embraced multi-generational teams consistently outperformed their youth-focused competitors. These appearances led to consulting opportunities with organizations seeking to transform their cultures and practices, allowing me to influence change on a broader scale. The relationships I had cultivated throughout my career proved invaluable in navigating this new chapter. Former colleagues who had witnessed my dismissal now viewed it as a turning point in their own professional philosophies. Many implemented age-inclusive policies in their own companies, creating a ripple effect that extended far beyond Innovatech's immediate sphere of influence. The young marketing team I had mentored emerged as vocal advocates for age diversity, using their growing influence to challenge outdated assumptions about innovation and leadership. As I worked to reshape industry standards, I also focused on personal reinvention. The forced transition from my position at Innovatech became an opportunity to explore new avenues in tech marketing. I launched a consultancy specializing in age-inclusive marketing strategies, leveraging my extensive network to create partnerships that demonstrated the power of multi-generational collaboration. The very qualities that had been dismissed as liabilities, my years of experience, deep industry knowledge, and comprehensive understanding of market evolution, now served as foundations for a thriving new venture. The tech community's response evolved from passive observation to active participation in driving change. Major companies began establishing advisory boards specifically focused on age diversity, inviting seasoned professionals to contribute their expertise without requiring full-time commitments. This flexible approach to talent utilization addressed the industry's need for experience guidance while accommodating the evolving preferences of older professionals seeking meaningful engagement without traditional corporate constraints. Through these developments, I discovered that true innovation emerges not from rejecting experience but from synthesizing it with fresh perspectives. The industry's gradual transformation from youth obsession to age appreciation reflected a deeper understanding of what drives sustainable progress. Rather than viewing age as a limiting factor, companies began recognizing it as a spectrum of possibilities, each stage offering unique contributions to technological advancement and market understanding. The unfolding situation at Innovatech continued to evolve, revealing layers of complexity that defied simple resolution. As regulatory investigations deepened, they uncovered additional financial irregularities that extended beyond the initial funding discrepancies. Forensic accountants discovered a pattern of preferential treatment in vendor contracts, suggesting possible kickback schemes involving key suppliers. These revelations added criminal fraud allegations to the growing list of legal challenges facing the company's leadership. Simultaneously, class action lawsuits filed by former and current employees expanded their scope to include claims of systematic age discrimination, gender bias, and racial inequality. The mounting legal pressure forced the board of directors to consider drastic measures, including the possibility of selling the company or filing for bankruptcy protection. Potential buyers showed interest but demanded significant concessions, knowing they held leverage in the negotiations. Daniel's attempts to salvage the situation became increasingly desperate. He initiated private meetings with major investors, hoping to secure emergency funding to weather the storm. However, these discussions revealed deep divisions among shareholders, with some advocating for his immediate removal while others pushed for a complete leadership overhaul. The board found itself paralyzed by conflicting interests and external pressures, unable to agree on a unified path forward. The company's operations suffered dramatically as key personnel began jumping ship. Senior engineers and product developers, concerned about their futures and reputations, accepted offers from competitors. Client defections accelerated, with major accounts terminating contracts or placing them on indefinite hold. The marketing department, once the company's strongest asset, struggled to function effectively without experienced leadership, leading to missed deadlines and failed campaigns. Regulatory bodies intensified their scrutiny, launching parallel investigations into potential securities violations and employment law breaches. The Department of Justice joined the fray, exploring possible RICO Act violations related to the alleged kickback schemes. This multi-pronged assault on the company's integrity created a climate of uncertainty that permeated every level of the organization. As the crisis deepened, industry observers noted the emergence of a new phenomenon, reputation contagion. Other tech startups began experiencing increased scrutiny of their own practices, with investors and clients demanding greater transparency. The ripple effects extended to venture capital firms, which faced pressure to demonstrate clean investment records and ethical portfolio management. This industry-wide reckoning forced companies to re-evaluate their cultural norms and business practices. The situation's complexity grew as various stakeholders pursued conflicting agendas. Employee advocacy groups pushed for immediate reforms, while institutional investors sought to preserve company value. Legal teams representing different parties engaged in intense negotiations, attempting to contain the damage while advancing their clients' interests. Meanwhile, the media continued its relentless coverage, fueling public interest and keeping the pressure on all involved parties. Attempts at mediation and settlement talks repeatedly broke down as new revelations emerged. The company's insurance providers began reassessing their coverage obligations, potentially leaving Innovatech exposed to massive liabilities. Financial institutions that had previously supported the company started calling in loans, further straining its resources. The situation had evolved from a single act of discrimination into a multifaceted crisis, threatening to reshape the entire tech startup ecosystem.